Hello everyone, welcome back. It is our last mock draft video of the 2025 season. We are just a mere 3 days away as we're recording this video from the draft, and I'm going to be giving you my last and full 32 team mock draft coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for Friday's live stream at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, Saturday's live stream at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and Tuesday's live stream at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time, talking about the draft, free agency, and all things in between. But in today's video, our last draft lottery video of the 2025 season. We did a couple of them earlier. Some of them were involving trades. This one's not involving trades or anything. It's just going to be basically as of Tuesday afternoon when I'm recording this. It's probably going to come out sometime Wednesday, but as of Tuesday afternoon, these are all the teams and which picks they actually own as of this moment in time. So definitely don't forget to watch out for that. But here's our draft lottery. So the first overall selection belongs to the New York Islanders, and I don't think it's any surprise that I'm going with the one that a lot of people are expecting them to go with. The New York Islanders take Matthew Schaefer first overall. Not too surprising there. 6 foot, 285 pounds. Left shot defenseman. He had 7 goals and 22 points in 17 OHL games, but looked great. Really good puck moving defenseman. Going to be a top pair guy at the NHL level. And especially if the Islanders do wind up moving on from Noah Dobson, adding him to a defense that already has guys like Pelech and Pulak and some other really good younger players who are coming up in the next couple of years, are going to be a really solid pickup there for the Islanders. So I have them going after Schaefer. Second overall, I have the San Jose Sharks. Maybe to some people's surprise, I have them taking Michael Misa. Misa, at least in my opinion, is still the second best player in this draft. He's a center / left winger, so he can play center, can also play wing at the NHL level. He's 6'1", under 83 pounds. He had 62 goals and 134 points in 65 OHL games. Really stellar top 6 forward. Celebrini is going to be the team's top line center, so you can either have him as your second line center, or you can put him on the wing and have Will Smith as your second line center. So either way, it gives the Sharks another forward option, and given how dynamic Misa was this year, just don't think San Jose can pass it up. So I have the Sharks going after Misa. Third overall is the Chicago Blackhawks, and I have them going after center prospect Anton Frondell. For the longest time, I said it was going to be Mrtka and Hagens, also in the top 4 of this draft, but I switched it up. I think a lot of other people have too. Frondell's done enough to get up into the top 3. I have him going to Chicago at number 3 overall. He's 6'1", 205 pounds, had 11 goals, 25 points in 29 Hockey Allsvenskan games. Really lethal guy, and I think could be a very fantastic second line center on that Hawks team behind Bedard, or be the top line center and you move Bedard to the wing. So either way, solid pickup here for the Hawks. I had them taking Frondell. At 4th overall, I have the Utah Mammoth, and I have them going after Porter Martone. Yes, I still have Utah going after Martone. The right winger from Mississauga of the OHL put up 37 goals and 98 points in 57 games. He's a 6'3", 205 pound right winger. Really solid power forward type guy. I think in a couple of years' time could really work well in that top 6, maybe even in the top line with guys like Clayton Keller and Logan Cooley and Dylan Gunther. So I think that's a really good pickup there for Utah. 5th overall in the Nashville Predators, and I have them going after a guy who I was expecting to go 6th overall over the past mock drafts, but now I have going 5th overall, and that's Caleb Desnoyers. Desnoyers was a center. He's 6 foot, 272 pounds, really bigger type center, played over in the QMJHL, putting up 35 goals and 84 points in 56 games. The Predators do have a decent amount of forward prospects, don't get me wrong, but I think Desnoyers could in the future be either a top line or at the very least second line center, and be a very solid, bigger type body, hard to play against type players. So very interesting note there, but Nashville takes Desnoyers. At 6th overall, the Philadelphia Flyers, and a little bit of a bump up from where my last mock draft had him. I have the Philadelphia Flyers going after Brady Martin. Martin, who's also a center prospect, 6 foot, 187 pounds, had 33 goals and 72 points in 57 OHL games this past year. Really fantastic center prospect who I think eventually could be a second or top line center. I still think if he was on the board, they would go after Desnoyers, but with Desnoyers off the board, I have them going after Martin, who I still think eventually could solve their center problem in their team. So very interesting note there, but I have Martin going to Philadelphia. At 7th overall, I have the fall stopping. After Hagens for a long period of time was viewed as like a top 2 prospect in this draft, he drops to number 7, but I have the Boston Bruins selecting him at 7th overall. Hagens, who was from Boston College, played over the NCAA last year, 11 goals and 37 points in 37 games, which is very hard to do over in college. 5'11", 185 pounds. So he's a smaller type center, which is why he does fall, but Hagens is a very dynamic guy who I think eventually could be a very lethal and dynamic top-line center, sort of like a Jack Hughes type player. So very interesting note there, but I have Boston going after Hagens. At 8th overall, I have the Seattle Kraken, and they take the second best defenseman on the board, in my opinion, at 8th overall, and that's Mrtka. Mrtka, who is a really solid right-handed defenseman, 6'6", 218 pounds, a behemoth of a defender, put up 3 goals and 35 points in 43 WHL games last year. I have him going to the Seattle Kraken at 8th overall. I think the Kraken have already taken so many forward prospects, especially in the first round over the past couple of years. They go a little bit of a different way here, and they go to defenseman. I think eventually Mrtka, in a couple of years' time, could be a very solid top 4, if not top pair, right shot defenseman, sort of like a Jamie Alexiak type guy. So very good pickup there for the Kraken. At 9th overall, I have the Buffalo Sabres, and I have them going after another top-end defensive prospect in this year's draft, and that's Jackson Smith. Smith is a left shot defenseman, 6'3", 190 pounds, really solid guy, put up 11 goals and 54 points in 68 WHL games this past year. I have him going to the Buffalo Sabres. So with the Sabres already having a whole bunch of solid top-end forward prospects, I have them going on the defensive side. I think ideally they would have gotten a right shot defenseman, but I think Smith is going to be a very fantastic player on the Sabres blue line and be a solid top 4 defenseman in a couple of years' time. So I have the Sabres going after Smith. So at 10th overall, I have the Anaheim Ducks, and I have them going after a forward who was definitely higher in the mock drafts early on in the season, and that's Roger McQueen. McQueen only finished this year with 17 games played in the WHL, putting up 10 goals and 20 points. He's 6'5", 192 pounds. He did suffer an injury, which is why he does fall a little bit from some of the earlier mock drafts, but McQueen's a solid player. He can play center, he can play wing, very versatile guy, and I think could work really well with that young Ducks core in a couple of years' time. So the Ducks going after McQueen. Then the Pittsburgh Penguins have the 11th and 12th overall pick. The 11th is their own, the 12th thanks to New York Rangers, who decided to transfer the Pittsburgh Penguins their 2025 first round pick. And with those 2 selections, the Pittsburgh Penguins take Jake O'Brien with the 11th overall pick and Victor Eklund with the 12th overall pick. So 2 very intriguing pickups here for the Penguins. Jake O'Brien is 6', 270 pound center, and Eklund's a 5'11", 170 pound left winger. O'Brien had 32 goals and 98 points in 66 OHL games. Eklund had 19 goals, 31 points in 42 Hockey Allsvenskan games. I think eventually O'Brien could be like the second line center for the Pittsburgh Penguins behind Crosby, and Eklund a top 6 goal scoring winger. So all in all, I think those are 2 really good pickups here for the Penguins, and they get 2 really solid draft picks here at 11 and 12. 13th overall, the Red Wings go after Logan Hensler. Hensler's a right shot defensive prospect, 6', 296 pounds, 2 goals and 12 points in 32 NCAA games. Really solid guy. The Red Wings don't have a whole bunch of really lethal top-end defensive guys or even defensive prospects. So I think going after Hensler makes a lot of sense here for the Red Wings. Trying to add on their blue line, which is one of their big weaknesses, at 13th overall. 14th overall, we have another top-end defensive prospect going off the board here, and that's Kashan Aitchison. Aitchison, who's a left shot defensive prospect, is 6'1", 198 pounds, 26 goals and 59 points in 64 OHL games. I think the Jackets could go a variety of different ways here if they don't trade the pick, but I think Aitchison's a really solid deep prospect, and I think eventually could work extremely well in that Jackets top 4 in a couple of years' time. So I have the Jackets going after Aitchison. At 15th overall, I have the Vancouver Canucks, and I have them going after center/left winger Carter Bear. Bear is 6', 179 pounds, had 40 goals, 82 points in 56 WHL games. More of a bigger type guy. He could be the Canucks' long-term solution as their second line center. Could also be a solid middle 6 type winger. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but I do think Bear would be a very solid add there for the Vancouver Canucks at 15th overall. Then just like the Penguins, the Canadiens have back-to-back picks. They have the 16th overall pick thanks to the Flames, and they have their own 17th overall pick. And with those 2 picks, I have the Montreal Canadiens going after Cole Reshcheny and Justin Carbonneau. Carbonneau is a right winger, 6', 192 pounds, while Restany is a forward. He can play center or wing. 5'10", 187 pounds. Restany had 26 goals and 92 points in 62 WHL games. Carbonneau had 46 goals and 89 points in 62 QMJHL games. I think the Canadiens could use maybe one more winger in their system, and I think Carbonneau, with his size, could be a very solid middle six add there for the Habs. While Restany, I do think, even though he's on the smaller side, could be a very fantastic second or third line center there for the Montreal Canadiens in due time. So very interesting note there. But I have Carbonneau and Restany going to Montreal. At 18th overall, we have the Calgary Flames, thanks to a pick they acquired from the New Jersey Devils. And I have them going after right winger Benjamin Kindal. Kindal, who played for Calgary in the WHL this past year, put up 35 goals and 99 points in 65 games. He's 5'10", 181 pounds, so he's a smaller type winger. But I think eventually he could be a very fantastic, dynamic top six winger. And we know that the Flames, they're not afraid of taking smaller players. Just look at what happened with Johnny Gaudreau when they picked him all those years back. He turned into a very fantastic player. So very interesting note there, but I have the Flames going after Kindal. At 19th overall, we have the St. Louis Blues. I had them going after one of the better center prospects left, and that's Braden Coots. Coots, who's 6 foot, 183 pounds, had 26 goals, 63 points in 60 games. The Blues have a ton of winger prospects, and they also have a couple of decent centers, but I think adding one more center couldn't hurt the St. Louis Blues, especially if they do wind up moving Brayden Schenn in the next year or two. And I think Coots eventually could be a very solid second line center behind Robert Thomas. So very interesting note there, but I had the Blues going after Coots. The 20th overall selection is Columbus's, thanks to the Minnesota Wild trade they got at the trade deadline. And I had them with the 20th overall pick, if they don't move it, going after Lyndon Lakovic. Lakovic at this point is probably one of the best players left on the board. He's a forward prospect, 6'4", 190 pounds, had 27 goals and 58 points in 47 WHL games, was a very fantastic guy, bigger type forward. I think could definitely be one of the bigger forwards on the Blue Jackets team and be a havoc to play against in the NHL level. So with the Blue Jackets 20th overall pick, I have them taking Lakovic. At 21st overall, we have the Ottawa Senators. They still have their own pick, and I have them going after left winger Malcolm Spence. Spence, who's 6'2", 201 pounds, had 32 goals, 73 points in 65 OHL games this past year, and I think long term Spence is going to be a very fantastic top six forward and put up a lot of points. So I think Ottawa goes after a solid forward prospect here. They have a couple of decent forward prospects and defensive prospects, but I think Spence will skyrocket to one of the better prospects that the Ottawa Senators do have. So I have the Sens going after Spence at 21 overall. At 22nd overall, we have the Philadelphia Flyers, and I have them trying to help their goaltending core by going after the top goaltending prospect in this year's draft, and that's Joshua Ravensburgen. Ravensburgen, who's 6'5", 192 pounds. Played over in the WHL, putting up a 3.0 OGAA, 901 save percentage in 51 games. The Flyers have Urson, they have Fedotov, they have a couple of other guys they just recently drafted, but they don't have any really solid top-end level goaltending prospects. And I think Ravensburgen in maybe 2 to 3 years' time could wind up being a very solid goalie prospect for the Philadelphia Flyers and maybe eventually be the team starter. So very interesting note there, but I have Ravensburgen go to Philadelphia. At 23rd overall, I have the Nashville Predators, thanks to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And with the Nashville Predators' second pick in this draft, I have them going after left shot defensive prospect Cameron Reed. Reed, who's 6', 174 pounds, had 14 goals, 54 points in 67 games. This past year, Reed is a very fantastic defensive prospect, and I think eventually could be a really solid defensive guy for the Blues. The Blues do have a whole bunch of NHL level defensemen at this point in time, but not a whole bunch of top end prospect defensemen besides a guy like Juracek. So I definitely think Reed will be a very solid guy on a couple of years' time and be a solid top four defensive guy in St. Louis. So I have the Blues going after Reed. 24th overall, I have the Los Angeles Kings, and with their own selection, I have them going after right shot defensive player Blake Fiddler. Fiddler, who's 6'4", 209 pounds, had 10 goals and 33 points in 64 WHL games. Fiddler is a monster on the blue line. The Kings don't have a whole bunch of lethal defensive prospects at this point in time, so I think they should go on the defensive end in the draft this year, and I definitely think Fiddler is a very solid add there for the Kings. So I feel they're going 24th overall. 25th overall, Chicago has their second pick of the draft thanks to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And with the second overall pick in this year's draft, I have the Chicago Blackhawks going after Shane Vasagi. Vasagi, who's a right winger, played over in the NCAA this past year, putting up 6 goals and 16 points, 37 NCAA games. Looks like a very fantastic right winger. Has some really good size to him after taking Frondell earlier. They now take a winger. And I think eventually Vasagi could eventually be a very solid top 6 winger, maybe even playing with Connor Bedard. So very interesting note there, but that's what I have the Hawks going with their second pick of the draft. At 26th overall, you have the Nashville Predators again, this time thanks to the Vegas Golden Knights. And this time I have the Nashville Predators taking a winger. They took a center first, then they took a defenseman, and now they take a winger. I have them going after Colin Potter. Potter, who's a left winger, 5'10", 172 pounds, had 13 goals and 22 points in 35 NCAA games. Potter is a very fantastic dynamic winger. Once again, another guy who's on the smaller side of things, but after already taking a couple of really good players with their first 2 first-round picks, with a third first-round pick, I have Nashville going after Potter, so just a little bit more winger depth for the Preds. At 27th overall, we have the Washington Capitals, and with the 27th overall pick, I have them going after Henry Brunswick. Brunswick is a right shot defensive prospect, 6'1", 194 pounds, put up 10 goals and 42 points in 67 OHL games. Brunswick looks like a beast on the blue line for the Washington Capitals, and I think eventually will be a solid top 4 defenseman with guys like Sandin and Chychrun and all those guys long term. So I do think the Capitals could go for the forward side, but they have a couple of really good forward prospects, so I have them going defensive here and getting Brunswick. At 28th overall, we had the Winnipeg Jets. They still have their own pick, and I have them going after right wing forward Cameron Schmidt. Schmidt, who is 5'7", 157 pounds, so definitely a forward who's on the smaller side of things, put 40 goals and 78 points in 61 WHL games. Schmidt, I think, eventually could be a very fantastic fit in the top 6 of the Jets. Even though he's on the smaller side of things, I think he could be a very dynamic top 6 winger. And with the Jets having their first round pick, I think they'd take a chance here on Schmidt at 28th. At 29th overall, we have the Carolina Hurricanes. They still have their own pick, and I have them going after Milton Gastrin. Gastrin, who's a center/left winger, 6'1", 185 pounds, put up 18 goals, 42 points in 40 SHL games. Gastrin looks like a very fantastic forward prospect. Canes don't have a whole bunch of top-end prospects anymore, so I think Gastrin will go and shoot up their depth charts and be one of their top prospects. And I think eventually, in a couple of years' time, could wind up being like a solid top 6 forward. So interesting note there. At 30th overall, we have the San Jose Sharks. Their second pick of this year's draft, thanks to Dallas and the Mikael Granlund trade, and I have them going defenseman here, taking Sasha Boumediene. I might pronounce that wrong, but Boumediene is 6'2", 183 pounds, put 3 goals and 13 points in 40 NCAA games, which isn't overly bad. Boumediene, I think, eventually could be a very fantastic top 4 left shot defenseman for the San Jose Sharks, maybe behind a guy like Dickinson long term on that Sharks blue line. Once again, the Sharks don't have a whole bunch of solid defensive prospects on their system, or at least top end level guys. And I think Boumediene will eventually be able to be a solid top 4 left shot defensive prospect in San Jose. So that's why I had the Sharks going. At 31st overall, we have the Philadelphia Flyers, thanks to the Edmonton Oilers, and I have them going after center prospect William Moore. He's 6'2", 274 pounds, had 27 goals and 59 points in 64 National Team Development Program games. The Flyers had already taken Martin with the 6th overall pick, so now they go after Moore. He's another center prospect. I think eventually could be a very solid second or third line, maybe even first line center there for the Flyers. And I think the Flyers center group would really start coming together if they took Martin and Moore in this first round. So very interesting note there. And then with the last pick in this draft, 32nd overall, Calgary, thanks to the Florida Panthers, I have them going after another center prospect, and that's Ivan Rybikin. Rybikin was 5'11", 209 pounds, had 19 goals, 30 points in 27 USHL games. I think eventually Rybikin could be a solid second or third line center. They had already taken a smaller end guy in Kindal with the 18th overall pick, so I go after Rybikin, and I think eventually Rybikin could be a very solid second or third line center there for the Calgary Flames. So very interesting note there, but that's the last pick I have in this last mock draft before the actual draft happens. So once again, some things could wind up changing by the time time this hits YouTube, probably tomorrow at some point on Wednesday. But just to recap, here's what my last mock draft looks like. So 32nd overall, we have Rybikin. 31st is Moore. Boumadine goes to San Jose. Gastrin to Carolina. Schmidt to Winnipeg. Bruce Wicks to Washington. Potter to Nashville. Vansagi to Chicago. Fiddler to LA. Reed goes to Nashville. Ravensburgen goes to Philly. Spence goes to Ottawa. Lakovic goes to Columbus. Coots to St. Louis. Kindal to Calgary. Carbonneau and Reshcheny to Montreal. Bear to Vancouver. Aitchison to Columbus. Hensler to Detroit. Eklund and O'Brien go to Pittsburgh. McQueen goes to Anaheim. Smith goes to Buffalo. Mrtka goes to Seattle. Hagens goes to Boston. Martin goes to Philly. Desnoyers goes to Nashville. Martone goes to Utah. Frondell goes to Chicago. Misa goes to San Jose. And first overall, Schaefer to the Islanders. So that's my mock draft. The last mock draft before this draft, the live stream that happens over on Friday. So definitely have your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. Do you agree with any of my picks? Do you disagree with any of my picks? And what is your guys' last mock draft before this year's draft? Definitely have your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. Let's hear your guys' opinion. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Remember to like this video, and if you're related to it, remember to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for June 27th, June 28th, and July 1st live streams talking about the draft, free agency, and all things in between. Don't forget to check out my blog talking about news, rumors, and analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.